Hello and welcome back. Today we are continuing our USA run in Victoria 3 in the 1.5 beta, kind of at the tail end of the beta here, so all the features are live, but balance is a little bit strange. Last episode we liberated Iraq for the sole purpose of being able to invade it for oil later, because we're RPing, the USA, and we believe that territory should be rightfully returned, which of course is, if we take a look at our cultures and we look at our population, hey look, it's all Indian pops. And if you take a look at, the culture map mode coming in here, you could see that we indeed did return, we have Tamil, Bengali, Tamil, and we have in fact returned a lot of the lands that were taken from the Indian people to the Indian people, just the wrong Indian people. But it's okay, close enough. It's the thought that counts. This episode, we will be focusing on becoming a robber oil baron ourselves. We are trying to get Standard Oil profitable. That way we can do all of the There Will Be Blood memes, but we're not profitable yet. Our prosperity has ticked up from around 4 to 9, or our productivity, and we're looking to push it up a little bit more. Really what we need to create more demand for oil, which we are hoping to get off of combustion engine. Also, then we can build cars in Detroit, so, there's that. And we'll be well on our way to becoming an oil baron following getting that. I'm probably going to make a separate video on this, but I did want to discuss a little bit the idea of seeding places with pops. So West Virginia, for the longest time, we didn't have enough population there, and what I think you're going to be doing, and now we kind of have an okay amount, because we now have Han and Bengali, and what we were doing is we were encouraging migration there, and I think what you're going to want to do with this new cultural communities mechanic, it seems that they will want to really prioritize areas that already have the community, and so the trouble is well, how do I get the community there and I don't have this West Virginia with 500k pop situation because I have a lot of resources I want to exploit there. If we take a look at the cultures and we take a look at Han, which is a fairly large percentage of our culture, you can see how many Han people are in our country, and you can also see they're really only migrating to, states that have a cultural community, and Missouri has a 4.2 million Han, right? And 1.8 million, 800,000, 2.8 million, 1.5 million, and then there's a bunch with 0. And so this means you are going to want to try and, for areas you really want to get pops going, you're going to want to, I think, temporarily increase with the decree, for, greener grasses, temporarily increase just to get the cultural community, so then you can get the migration. And we have done that also down here with Versat, which is currently where it's sitting, and we just got the Han cultural community, and so now we're getting this massive influx of migrants into here. One that is not commensurate with this, our level of migration attraction, but is instead a result of the Han people wanting to leave, and this being a Han cultural community. We're going to keep this in a little while longer, but then virtually the same type of state here in Transvaal is having a ton of problems, and the migration is leaving, and it has more attraction. And what's the primary difference here? There's no cultural community for Han. So I'm thinking that moving forward, something that you are going to be want to do is you are going to be wanting to use decrees for greener grass campaigns, just in order to seed certain key provinces, namely provinces with coal and iron, with migration cultural communities that will be, quite large, like in our case, Han. And by doing this, you can get massive migration in these areas. For a little bit of context, we were in the same market as Great Britain, getting a ton of Indian pops. Now we're getting a ton of Han pops, but we kind of don't like that we just randomly have a ton of Han pops in Missouri, because Missouri is really not the best state. However, now that they are here, they can, intermarket migration. They're actually leaving, and they're going to California and Versat and Ohio and Michigan. And this key, let's just kind of come back to this cultures and look at Han. We can see that, oh, California doesn't have Han pops? Well, Versat does, so I think the Han pops are leaving for Versat. And so, there's also a little bit of cultural communities in some other places as well. But I think this is going to be a key idea moving forward with the new changes to migration, the idea of seeding an area so that it can receive a ton of migrants of a particular culture group, and then moving the edict or getting rid of the edict afterwards. We are going to let it sit here in Versat a little while longer, though, before moving it to Transvaal, because we would like to get a Han community there. I also wanted to talk about this mega huge queue we developed in the interim, kind of in between episodes. First of all, we have a ton of ports because we do not have enough market access, and Russia will get a percentage of our convoys. We're already super overbuilt, and we are trying to prepare ourselves for leaving the Russian market. The main key thing is we are bankrolling Great Qing because we want to reach the point where we have plus 80 relations with them alongside having an obligation with them so that we can pull them into the market, and to a lesser extent we will try and do the same thing with Japan. It's really not an expensive bankroll, and we think that will help out quite a bit after opening their market, and we will be able to get Japanese migrants, hopefully. Dainam also has a decent amount of pops, we might go there. But kind of just cruising through explaining a lot of what we're doing is we were going to see a lot of places that have like level 30, we are going to be bumping them up to level 51 for the max economies of scale, which will have a super overabundance, well over, plus 75 for the local prices, which in some sense is bad, but it will hopefully allow us to export more, and we will get the additional throughput from economies of scale, which has increasing marginal returns, especially as you get into the late 20s, early 30s, it becomes a lot better to bring it up to 50. And then we also have, a lot of, just like level 1 places, we're dropping in a bunch of different places, and the reason why is, especially with the consumer goods, these will be really, really profitable, and so we see a lot of that. We have government administrations, we want to upgrade some of our institutions, and so this is kind of where we're going with a lot of this. And then we are also building up in places like Versat, which is now getting pops, as we discussed earlier, but mainly we are building up tooling, coal, and iron in places that have all of these, so that construction will be cheaper there, and we are emphasizing construction in these places. And this is kind of our overall strategy in terms of what we have done in putting in an absolute ton into our construction queue. Trying to abuse two ends of the spectrum here, where like in places like Texas we have a ton of pops, we are building up to 51, even if it's going to cause local prices, the balance, to be a huge glut and overproduction of clothing. And then in places like, let's find a place. Places like Kansas, we're building a level 1 food industry, because that first food industry will be really profitable. So would, the very first textile mills, because the local prices on textile mills, there will likely be a significant shortage that is pulling up the price, which will make the individual first business more profitable. And so you have this dual track thing where you are building according to MAPI in one sense, and then you're building according to throughput in another, and balancing that is a bit of an interesting task. Regarding technology, though, when we research Zeppelins, throughput gets even better, right? And anything that's giving us market access price impact is going to make, relative to MAPI considerations, throughput considerations, more important. And so this is another thing to consider. After that, we will be going after the other company. Hopefully our Indian pops will be happy and proud. So despite like a massive wave of ports, we are not getting like any positive traction in regards to increasing the overall market access. And so this is not good. This might require us to make adjustments. So we are preparing to leave the market. We certainly don't like it because we love having all these Chinese pops coming to us. But if this is not fixable, like when we left the UK's market, then there's nothing to be done other than leave. Despite our market problems, which, still trying to solve, we are about to pass the 500 million GDP mark, and of course, since I'm highlighting this and, doing this sort of thing, of course it's going to actually go, hey, we got it. It didn't go down. Bless. Pops are also coming up at a high rate, but, really, really popping off here. And expecting to add a lot of construction. We're not even on the highest tax bracket. We're just kind of waiting to clear at least a decent chunk of this queue before we add, because we know we're building a lot of stuff like steel and tools in areas that have coal and iron, and we want these steel and tools to come through along with glass before we decide where to add construction sectors, because the construction sector's upkeep is one of the primary ways we're looking at it. So, like, for example, example, we're looking at Missouri, and then if we take a look at Missouri, why do we want to build in Missouri? Will we have an advantageous time? And it's like, well, okay, Missouri has really, really cheap glass, and but it isn't a coal/iron state, so we might prefer, someplace like Versat in the long term, understanding that construction will be cheaper, as long as we get a decent amount of peasants. And you can see they're still coming on up, I believe, but now, or they were, and now they're migrating out. But we have the cultural community here set in, so I think we're going to do greener grass, and we're going to move it to Transvaal, because Transvaal is having a little bit of a population problem as well overall, and we would like to get that fixed up pretty nicely. So we're going to come in, we're going to put down a decree in Transvaal, and we will hope that a cultural community for Han develops there. Well, let's double check and see. Yeah, cultural community did come in here to Han, which I think was the result of the mass migration to Versat, so this is going to be good. We'll try and get the pop-up here, and then we'll probably be moving along into places like Tanganyika, trying to add as well, because this is a coal-iron place, but we might just let that develop a little bit more naturally, because the plus 15% mortality for Han pops because it's not a homeland state. But, these are a couple of the places we still have that have coal and iron. Also, notably, the rubber plus wood together, along with, being able to go dyes and cotton, might make it a pretty good spot to be building also clothing, which is kind of interesting. We have a lot of infamy right now, so the play we have decided to kind of engage in is just opening Sokoto's market. Sokoto, Japan, and Siam all they're the biggest ones that start out with isolationism, and so opening their market is always a good choice if you want to do the low infamy playstyle, and you have around 25 infamy. Alright, I think this is going to be it for us. I think we're going to realize our destiny as an oil baron here. We've been trying to do this the entire time, trying to get this one on up, but I believe our ability to turn on automobile production and also combustion engine derricks combined are going to be substantive enough that, we will be able to do it. We will be able to make these oil rigs, profitable enough that we can be, productive enough, because productivity is different than profit, that we'll be able to get it in. So we are going to come in, we're going to go to rural, and we are first going to set in the PM for combustion oil derricks, it's really, really strong PM. It makes a ton more. Now, this will depress the price of oil, and this is a problem because if your outputs get depressed in price, this decreases your productivity overall. However, we're going to be able to massively increase productivity on top of by switching to automobile production. Now, we're not going to shift everywhere, and in general, this PM is actually really bad. You generally shouldn't use this PM. I also low-key think smooth bores might be better than breech loaders, but that's kind of a separate conversation. But we're going to come to Detroit, of course. Little old Detroit over here, Detroit, Michigan, and we're going to at least turn them on here. And what happens is these actually will get you get really depressed in price. I think it needs a tick. Generally, pops actually do consume automobiles, but what we're going to do is we're going to be putting it in on a PM for our, what we are using with our pushing guys, which are almost all centrally located in Pennsylvania. This is where a majority of our cannons are and this type of thing. So in Pennsylvania, we're also going to turn on automobile production, and I think this will be what covers our entire covers our entire nation in terms of automobile production. Notably, it is driving up the price, or is going to help drive up the price of oil here. Oil, of course, getting way cheap on the backs of us turning on the derricks. We might even have to do something about, we obviously have to do something about the rubber, because this is the first time creating demand for rubber, but you see the price of automobiles is now high, is now coming back on up, and so this is going to be significant because with the price of automobiles getting high, now this building should employ up, and it getting fully employed, using a lot of oil, we might be able to get the oil productivity high enough to turn on the company, and you can see we gained 5 prosperity there for a second. And so this is what I'm talking about, and our productivity is now at 10, up from 9, and so we also acquired this new PM of public motor carriages, which is, not one I think we want to use here because we have like a glut of transportation here specifically, but in areas where we have a transportation shortage or we want to turn on PMs, now we can come into the urban center and turn on public motor carriages so that we can turn on PMs that we want, which in turn is going to, overall, this is going to free up, it's going to create demand for automobiles, and it's going to smooth out transportation prices across our economy. And so we'll go about doing that as well. So if we go into the market and we scroll to the very bottom, we can see local goods, and we can click on them, and we can get this interface where we can look at local prices. And we see in North Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, or here, where do we have shortages specifically? But it looks like North Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, these, and to a lesser extent Mississippi, these all have shortages. So we can come in here and we can use public motor carriages here now to provide a lot more transportation. And we can come into Oklahoma and use the public motor carriages. Of course, public trains would also be acceptable, but we can do this. And then we can come in here and we can use public motor carriages. And I think North Dakota was another one. And we can continue to do this. Now, these have to adjust. We might have to even produce more automobiles, and we probably should have at the very least been on public trains. It looks like public trains would be a little bit more profitable, but we are just doing this to increase the price of oil. If we did not care about the price of oil, we probably, well, we might even end up turning on more of these, but just to like iterate, the automobile PM is really bad because it uses like an additional 1,500 workers, I believe, and on a per oil basis, it's not very efficient. However, we have a ton of oil, so we don't care if something's inefficient on a per oil basis. We actually want the price of oil to be higher, and we can't really do that very easily. We could roll back the PM swap that's like allowing this to be so cheap, but instead what we're going to do is we're going to consume more automobiles than we otherwise would. And so what we can also do is we can look, we knew we had it in I think Missouri, Oklahoma, and right now we're just looking to see if they have, not that one, but this one, and then also North Dakota, I think. And we're just looking to see if these places is specifically a motor industry available. Another big problem of this is we, of course, have a shortage of rubber, which is really what we're trying to solve with our construction queue at the moment. Probably should have preemptively gone after that. I forgot that it required rubber. But let's just come into the market and let's look again at prices. Okay, let's look at the buy orders, first of all, for our automobiles and see how many of them are coming from pop consumption. A huge amount are coming from pop consumption. So you can see it's really not a result of the urban center demand, but rather the pop demand, which I wonder if they'll calm down a little bit. I wonder if they'll chill out if we just let it tick a few times and come down into kind of normal looking territory. But the sell orders are getting higher. But in general, not a PM you want to use except for the express purpose of increasing the price of oil, which is what we're doing. We'll come back with a little bit of an update. Okay, we're going to be utilizing this map mode and taking kind of a good close look at a whole bunch of these because we need to try and get all of our transportation prices that are minus 75, which are the blue maps, up, and all the ones that are plus 75 down by switching the urban center PM. And then on these ones we will try and make sure that we create more demand for transportation, and so we're going to come back with a different looking map in just a moment. We are also going to turn on tanker cars everywhere because productivity is calculated on the basis of how many pops you have. Decreasing the denominator, or making it so that fewer pops are employed in every rail rig, or oil rig rather, will make it so it's more profitable. And in areas where this causes a shortage, what we will do is we will come to that area and we will use automobiles in order to increase their transportation in the event that they don't have a railroad. So for example, the Trucial Coast probably it doesn't have too much in the way of railroads, and this is probably actually, if there is a single state where we can't solve the problem, it would be this one. But turning on the use of the, well, I guess they just don't have any pops to work anything, do they? We might have to delete a port here so that they can employ up, and this should solve the problem. They also have a railroad here for what it's worth, so I guess that wasn't ever a problem to begin with. But by doing this, we decrease the denominator, which should kind of help us to raise the productivity of these buildings here. All right, it's certainly not perfect, but it's going to be a lot more orange than it was blue before. There's some states that are just sticky and not really that solvable, like the loud cars outside. Shame. But we should be having, you know, a little bit more productivity if we let this tick, you know, a few ticks. We should be having a bit more productivity on these, the combination of the oil and also on the railways. Let's take a Monday tick. Still a little stuck here. Man, we're probably going to need to, so every time we produce less engines every time we swap over one of these PMs to using cars, and the PM just like really blows. But what we might have to do is we might have to keep swapping over more to just increase. The problem is the price of oil is just too depressed here, which is, you know, I guess a first world problem, or I guess maybe a Middle East problem. And so we need to somehow increase the price of oil. Man, this is like, we have been so oil hungry this entire run that we've taken so many places that are good for oil that even with houseware plastics and also using some amount of cars, we still can't bring the price of oil up. This is a time. You know, this whole business also doesn't help the fact that we are, you know, having difficulty accessing the Russian market. So with our main like offensive force, we are going to be using something that will be increasing both oil input and automobile input and give us more provinces captured, formation transfer feed, and more surprise maneuver chance. And hopefully this is going to help us not just militarily, but also, you know, to get the oil up in price and the automobiles kind of consumed fairly. The automobiles don't need any help with that, but the oil up in price at least a little bit. I think maybe as soon as we hit friendly, that is 80 relations with Great Qing, we might leave Russia's market, or at least see what leaving Russia's market looks like, with the idea of trying to pull Great Qing in ourselves. We unfortunately don't have an adjacency with them with which to kind of entice them, so what we might do is we might go after Macau or something like this in order to develop an adjacency with Great Qing, which we currently don't have. Could also go after Dainan or Burma or something to this effect, but the idea is they're much more willing to join our market if we develop this, and so this might be what we're looking for after this war of annexing in here Tripoli or Tripolitania for the purposes of, well, they have oil, of course. Thought we'd take a look at these cars in action. First on the landing here. Now, of course, the enemy is not a very formidable one. Socialism, big nice. I think that's the last tier 3 tech we had. But we should just see just how fast an occupation can happen with the cars helping to push, as opposed to, you know, kind of the beginning. You can see those guys are... Wait, are we cruising or are they cruising? No, we're cruising. Look at this. Very, very fast. It looks like their guy can actually just... Their troops just can't actually get to the front faster than the front is moving with the cars. So it looks like we're just auto-occupying them entirely, which is a bit interesting, and maybe it's a little overtuned, but Alright, the time is nigh. You can take a look. We're at 79 relation, 93% progress. We don't have an obligation. We would love to have an obligation, but this is just too uncomfortable. It went from 90. We have been building more ports. You know, the real problem is we have so much construction now, and all these goods have to be shipped to the market capital over here, that it's just not tenable for us to be able to do, and so we are going to be leaving the market. Unfortunately, we're almost certainly going to be able to get Japan in our market, so we're going to be able to get some level of migration, but we're not going to be able to get this super caked up Qing migration, at least for a while, and we might... see, now we can form an alliance or a defense pact, this type of thing. We might just form a defensive pact with them anyways, but we'll almost certainly do one after we leave, but this is as a result of them switching to friendly. You know, also, Russia's on the same side of a war with us right now, because they're protecting their market. Little did they know, it's not your market, baby, so we're going to end the customs union. And we're going to experience a ton of shortages and pain. Our GDP dropped 70 million. Or like 100 billion. This is kind of normal when you leave a market. Generally, you want to do a lot of preparation in terms of, one of the big ones is making sure you have enough convoys, but we have more than enough convoys because we were propping up the entire Russian market with the convoys. We also now have a huge market ourselves. We will become a GP basically instantly off the back of this, and we will look to expand the market pretty much immediately, but this is going to require a ton of like effort on our part to make sure that we resolve... Ooh, look at that meat. I hate it when I don't have enough meat in my life, but we are going to just run a whole bunch of trade routes, and we can run a whole bunch of really big trade routes. And these trade routes also will increase volume of trade with various countries, which in turn will increase our ability to, you know, once we have a large volume of trade with them, they will be more likely to join our market. So we should be able to kind of get a decent sized market going really quickly. But we are going to, you know, for everything that's really expensive, we're going to be running a ton of trade routes in, and also just a ton of trade routes out for almost certainly. Yeah, Russia was consuming a large amount of our luxury goods, and so we're going to be exporting those, you know, the clothing, the etc., mostly etc., and we'll be importing all the agrarian stuff that has suddenly turned very expensive. And so, also automobiles. I guess we were providing autos for majority of the rest of the market. This will probably adjust as our pops consume more, maybe. We'll see how that goes, but we definitely need to do a whole bunch of trade setting in right now. Okay, I think we were spending a couple hundred bureaucracy. I think we had like 1k over. I didn't track what it was before we did all this trade, but now we're up to 1300 bureaucracy spent on trade routes. And if you take a look, we are going to have, Jesus, it even lags when we try and load it up. We are going to have an enormous amount of trade routes. Just here, why don't we, can we sort by, I know we can sort by goods. No, not like that. Okay, sort by this. You can see all the trade routes we're doing. We're going to cancel maybe a couple of these exports, but we just are looking to increase volume, and you can see it's all kind of the same type of stuff where we're importing a lot of stuff, importing and exporting a lot of the same type of stuff, or we're not arbitraging anything. We're not importing silk from someone and then exporting it or any of this stuff, and we're mainly importing the agricultural stuff, although this is becoming less important as our GDP climbs. And so hopefully, you know, we were like 540 million before. We're going to take a couple ticks and just see how quickly it recovers here, you know, over the course of 1 or 2 ticks. But it should be pretty quick. I think it went down to like 440, and there you can see the drop, but now it's already up like 20 million just from the first tick. And the trade routes haven't even gotten very big yet. And so, you know, leaving the market's always very, very spooky. And of course, it killed all of our rivalries, so we're now running a negative influence. So maybe we wanted to, becoming a GP killed our rivalries. But then another 13 million, and we're well on our way to getting back to, you know, 500 million. And so what we're going to do now, and be focused on now, other than the mildly loud car outside, is we are going to be looking who is willing to join the customs union. None of these boys. That's unfortunate. And we can't get anyone in this way because we don't have any rivals and we have too much stuff. So we're going to stop improving relations with everyone. Improving relations is something that costs a lot of, you know, improving or damaging relations generally costs a large amount of Diplo relative to bankrolls. So we're going to leave the bankrolls in, and we're just going to switch on over. Now we have around 400 to work with, which we can use for both trade agreements, which we will probably want with Russia, and also for customs union people. We see we can get Japan straight away, so we will do that. And we can use our obligation we have with 2 Sicilies to bring them in, so we can stop bankrolling them as well. Let's just do that. Let's see how close Qing is to changing to our customs union. Just 46, so we're going to keep bankrolling them, and we maybe could get in. Kind of tempting to form a defensive pact with them in order to kind of facilitate this, but we'll kind of keep it on the table for now. These guys, let's see how close Spain is. Spain's a little bit further away. We could bankroll them, but this is a bit of an expensive bankroll, but maybe it's worth it. We're just at cordial, so we can get up to friendly, so maybe we'll sink this in, and then we'll take a look at, you know, who else was pretty close. We see Venezuela's close. We are bankrolling them already. Iraq is close, although... Well, actually, let's just bankroll Iraq as well. The main idea is we want to supply them weapons before we turn on them. So let's see. Where's the bankroll button? Classic. We're going to give them the weapons and then say they're a threat because they have the weapons. This is the American way. We're going to see if we can take on any debt as well, which will just give us obligations. We can't do that, and so I think that's kind of what we have set in for now. We would like to get Parma and Greece in, and we see that they're, like, if they're in the menu, that they're probably pretty close. So we're going to gift a trade agreement with Greece, which will give us increased relations over time. And we're going to take a look at Parma, and we're going to do the same thing. and we're going to also start bankrolling them as well. And so this will hopefully allow us to pull people into the customs union better. And what's going to be very curious, at least to me, is I'm wondering if we are going to siphon off their pops almost immediately. Now, they don't have a lot, and we don't have cultural communities for South Italian yet, and so it'll be a little bit before we can really know if we're going to get some migration from them, but we're going to be keeping an eye on this, as well as, you know, we're almost certainly going to get migration from Japan, but again, it's, well, I was going to say it's not yet, but already they're being sent to Ohio, so this is going to be fantastic for us because, you know, it's not a great Qing level of population here, you know, 370 million. Notice that's when we joined Russia's market, when their pop started collapsing. But you know, it is going to be at least 32 million, so that's pretty sizable, and it's going to be beneficial for us quite a bit. You know, Russia even, their pop started declining when we joined their market, and like Australia has steadily been declining, and so really we have like a lot of power with our migration pull for decreasing the pop of like every country in our customs union, and so this is one of the reasons why it's so critical for us to do this. And look, the GDP is still cranking back up, so you know, we should be in relatively good shape in just a second here. Very significant about becoming a GP now is we get a much better loan interest rate, and so deficit spending becomes much more attractive, so we're probably going to ramp up construction quite a bit, but also we get to put interests everywhere now, and so this will help us for joining plays. And speaking of joining plays, there is a little bit of an interesting going on in France right here, so we're going to see if we can get on a juicy side of this in exchange for a reverse sway. So in exchange for our help, we have asked for Mauritania, and so we will be helping them out just a little bit. I think that we could have also asked for Alsace-Lorraine, which was insane, very strong state, but it doesn't really do anything for us. And so we're going to put some cavalry on this front, but we're really not going to mobilize a whole lot. I think we will help them out, though. But in terms of trying to expand the customs union just a little bit more, just like the beep boops outside, what we are going to be doing is going to be, you know, actually selecting the right tab. But then we will be taking a look. We want Iraq, Venezuela, Parma, and Greece. And so what we will be doing is we will taking an individual look at each of their markets. So we're going to go take a look at the Parmese market. We can see all the trade routes we have, but what we're going to try and do is we are going to try and explicitly increase the volume of trade with them. Now we're importing from them for the silk, which is why their silk's expensive, but we can come here and we can export to them. Looks like our engines are more expensive than theirs. We are just going to try and increase trade volume as much as possible with them, just kind of taking a look at stuff so we can export them steel, and we could probably export them lead. Yes, we can. And even if it's not especially profitable, we do want to just do as much volume as possible with them so that we can we import this? No. Can we export it? Also no. We want to do as much volume as possible with them. That way they are much more eager to join our market. And then once they've joined our market, we don't really have to bankroll them, and we will free up some Diplo, and then we will find another person from whom to do the same thing, and we can import that. So that we can just, as much as possible, expand the customs union so we can try and get some of that sweet migration. So what we've been doing right here, we will do that with all 4 of these nations to try and get them in the customs union. So we haven't had much luck yet regarding getting people in the customs union, but we are about at the GDP we were before, and you can see it's almost no time. And this was largely off the back of the fact that we were running this enormous surplus of convoys going into leaving the market, such that we could do a whole bunch of trade. And so, you know, I think if you start losing a little bit of access, you just build up more convoys and you give them to your overlord. And then if you're losing a ton of access, then you can go into this and you can say, hey, we're going to increase the trade routes. Of course, the number of trade routes is actually making the game lag quite a bit, but the thing we wanted to draw attention to here is Spain is willing to join our customs union for an obligation. For these guys, we want to be able to protectorate them, and so we don't want, or for a majority of these guys, we want to be able to protectorate them, so we don't want to give them an obligation. However, Spain is going to not be kind of on the protectorate chopping block for a while, and Spain has subjects that have, you know, pop, and so what we want to do is we want to siphon off some pop, and so this will give us access to 16 million pop, and it will also, you know, overall even out our market. We owe them an obligation, boo-hoo, but it will also, you know, include the Philippines and also include, you know, Cuba and this sort of thing in terms of getting into our market. I don't know why Okay, yeah, there's still the Spanish color. But this will help out quite a bit. You know, we are siphoning off migrants from Japan. You can see that they are starting to lose pops here. And so we will continue on. You know, Great Qing, notably, we did reduce autonomy in Persia, which brought them down below friendly, but they will keep trending back up and get back there pretty quickly as a result of the bankroll. And so you can see they're at 75 here, and we will be bringing them back on up as we try and, you know, secure our, you know, population growth. I think you can see this starting to flatten out. This was when we left the UK's market for Russia. It started to get more vertical because we started to get Qing pops, and we really would want to get back on that bandwagon. Mission accomplished, baby. We got back up to, you know, 80, the friendly attitude towards them, and now they will accept joining our customs union. We will just have to owe them an obligation. It's not like we're going to declare war on them anyways, and we might even leave the bankroll in to get rid of the obligation, but they will join the Archducal American market here, which of course will mean we have access to those tasty, tasty pops. Just ignore that part of our market up there. And this means we will be getting, like, we get it all. We also get, you know, an additional GPs, get more, what is it, not loan interest rate, although loan interest rate, but more migration attraction on top of this from 10% to 25%. We're getting 25% from, you know, the what is it, the Statue of Liberty. We're getting another 50 or so percent, either 25 or 50% from our intelligentsia. I think it's 25%. You know, we can just come in here and see all the modifiers applying right now. Great power, intelligentsia propagandists, gold mines depleted, and 25 Statue of Liberty in New York. And so this is going to allow us to severely, like, just siphon off pops from all of our subjects, right? Like, these guys have been losing pops the entire game. Only 800k pop in Australia. That's going to be so cheap for us to annex, which is perhaps a new inflection point or consideration in this version, or at least in this version of the 1.5, is when you have someone as a subject and you have enough pop attraction, you just absolutely, like, just drain their pops, which in turn will decrease the price in terms of infamy of annexing them. But this is a huge deal for us, getting Great Qing into the market at the very end here. Also, we're going to take a look and just kind of comb through this, see if we can get anyone in the customs union. I don't think we're just going to full protectorate Parma. That's probably going to be too much infamy anyways, and so I think we're just going to owe them an obligation as well, which will free up, you know, some stuff for us to work with, because we don't need to bankroll them, so we will get a little bit more, you know, of this Diplo back, and then we can use it to bankroll someone else, and we expand the customs union just a little bit more. And you can see it's quite expansive. It also helps because we're basically the same color as Prussia, so it looks like it's even bigger than it is. You know, it's all about angles and lighting, baby. And so our market has gotten huge just after we leave, and maybe we can make some sort of money moves in terms of getting... It'd be so nice if we could transfer the Raj, although I don't think that's going to be possible. So we decided to also incorporate Sokoto by offering them an obligation, but I think we're going to conclude the episode here. You know, we have managed to do a couple of things here, but the big one is leaving Russia's market, talking quite a bit about migration, and then once we left their market, managing to pull Qing into ours. We prepped leaving their market by overbuilding convoys a whole lot, and putting in a bunch of trade, and also making sure that we had plus 80 relations with Qing on the back of a bankroll, so that we knew we would hopefully be able to bring them back into the market relatively quickly, which we did. So this is tremendously useful for us. We also put in like 300 trade routes immediately on leaving. You see some of these are not profitable, but mainly the ones that aren't profitable that are still in are ones with people we are trying to have really high volume of trade with anyways, which is namely Greece, Venezuela, and Iraq. You know, the performance is now quite slow, as you can see, on the back of, you know, having so many trade routes. It was like 300 initially. I think it's quite a bit less now, but it's still quite a lot. I think that if we filter by only yours, or what is it, by country, you can see we now have 176 routes, down from like 300, which was kind of our initial one, but still doing an enormous volume of trade, as it were. We're not going to accept that because we need to float some of this to pull people into the customs union, but I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Kind of a big move, getting out of Russia's market and into our own and becoming a great power. Obviously the #1 GP because, you know, It's not even close. But also, next episode, we will become an oil company man. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please feel free. Yeah, I already said that stuff. Anyways, toodaloo, have a good one. Doo-doo.